do antipsychotic meds. You see what I'm saying with that? They're not fun drugs, and so compliance. And I've been on the phone and been dealing with this since about 3:30 this morning. So, and hopefully, and we're going to try and get this guy, which is a problem in this day and age. We're going to try and get this guy hospitalized, but that's not always as easy as you think either.
Was he in a safe place where he wouldn't be?
Well, that's part of the stuff I'm working on right now.
Being hurt to
safe place and stuff like that, because there is suicidal stuff here.
Yeah.
So I had to do a duty to warn call. I did a duty to warn call at about 4:30 this morning.
Do you work with ERS?
Pardon me?
Do you be working with ERS?
Well, at the ERS, doctors, family, you do what you can. Because all I have right here is a phone number and a name. Mm-hmm. I don't know where this guy is. So it took me an hour, just to start to work some of that stuff and things. So it gets to be a drag. And this guy's been in the system. This isn't a new case. He's been in the system for probably 18 years. And it is. It's just really a sad, sad situation for these patients.
And some of this that he's going through come from some PTSD or
no.
Just all organic.
No, this is just basic schizophrenia. Yeah.
Okay.
This is not or PTSD or anything. No, this is just like I said, I've known him for 18 years, and he was in this hospital right here alone, at one point. And it's just sad. It's hard to see some of that happen with these. And anybody know anybody with schizophrenia and what it's like? It's tough, isn't it? It's hard.
I get it.
Huh?
I get it.
You have schizophrenia? Yeah. Well, your meds you must be fortunate. Your meds must be working for you then, because but you know what I'm talking about then, don't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes out of the blue. Yesterday's everything's working, all of a sudden it's not working anymore. And, for whatever reason. Sometimes don't know what the reason is.
Do you think that environmental factors, like everything that's in the news about the coronavirus, and I heard the ramblings of, the botulism outbreaks. Yeah. Do you think that could have contributed?
It certainly does. Mm-hmm. Yes, becoming aware of those things, and because then that rolls for that person into their brain just wants to do things with that information that, we would, gee whiz, we're worried about the coronavirus, now they're saying and this and that, and we worry about that, but if that brain, it'll roll it to the next, and then the next level with that.
Right.
And it's a very difficult thing, and so, and you guys, you're going to be encountering this kind of stuff, even if you don't work in a MESA program, mentally ill substance abuse. And some of you might. We have one right now. I've got interns in a MESA program right now. But the thing is that one way or another, in substance abuse, you're going to be encountering this stuff. And we did talk about this stuff. And of course, as we talk about the brain more, we're going to talk more about this stuff and how that works and how does that happen? To the best of our knowledge. See, one of the problems is we don't know. We really don't know with a lot of this stuff. And that's why. The meds we have right now they're not even close to. And there is no cure for this stuff, And it's like I said with the antidepressant meds. Antidepressant meds don't cure antidepression. They don't really even treat depression. What they do is just fool that brain into thinking it's feeling better for a while. And most of the meds right now with schizophrenia, they, one way or another, act on the dopamine and then / kind of sometimes serotonin systems. And, it's the best we've got. It's better than nothing, but we've got a long ways to go with that. And so, anyway, I'm keeping this. If I seem distracted, I'm keeping an eye on this phone. So please bear with me this morning. Like I said, I've been up since 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning. That first call came in. So anyway, gang, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this test. Now, I want to talk to you about this for a second. If you did well on this test, fantastic, nice work, keep it up. Don't get cocky about it, keep it up. And that means keep doing everything you're doing and your notes and things like that. If you didn't do as well as you wish on this test, and we got to talk about some stuff. And what are we going to do to get you on par? You need to know. You think about this. In our discussions with the brain, in our discussions with motivational interviewing and counseling, this semester. How many times have I referred to something from last semester? Don't forget this that we talked about last semester. Don't forget this. Oh, remember when we talked about this last semester? And that kind of a thing like that. Everything we did last semester, we talked about for a reason. All of that fits more and more and more, like a big jigsaw puzzle, into the big understanding of addiction, and then that understanding translating into, of course, what we're going to do about it and how we're going to be the best agents of hopefully change and moving to a healthier place in life. We counselors, you need to know this stuff, all right? And we really, you're not going to be able to benefit. And I do want you to remember, how many times have I referred to last semester already in our discussions this semester? So, and I do that not because I'm some big meanie and I get to give people grades. No, this is about helping you become knowledgeable in a way that you understand, in a way that you can be the best counselor as possible, and you to meet your goals to be that good counselor, that kind of a thing like that. Take a look at this. Why didn't you know that? Why weren't you able to recognize? How come you didn't have that knowledge? How come you didn't this? Is it attendance? Is it note taking? Is it your working with this information? Guys, when class ends, class doesn't end. You need to work with this. You need to review this stuff. You need to constantly be thinking about this stuff. You know, DACT as an at least intellectual activity right now needs to be constant in your mind as you think about this stuff, understand this stuff. Gang, you guys have your computer thing going, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you start to form some study groups, discussion groups. How about discussion group after class or something like that? Maybe, let's talk about this stuff. Let's work together with this stuff. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Make sure, do we get this? Hey, who has a question from today's class? Who wants to talk about this? Who wants to talk about, get going with that. You've got to stay active with this. This isn't just something where you come into class, turn on DACT brain, and then class is over. Well, turn it off. We'll turn it back on Thursday morning when we get back together, or Tuesday morning, whatever, that kind of thing like that. You got to constantly be working with, thinking about this information. Hey, you think about it, psychology is happening every day in everybody's life. Every time you watch a TV show, every time you interact with somebody, every time you see something happening in a public situation or something, think, wow, that's what we were talking about in class. Let me, how could I understand what I'm seeing right now, what I'm experiencing right now? Hey, whatever, and how do I put that to work? How do I better understand? Gang, another thing, what did I say in the beginning? Drive friends and lovers crazy with this stuff, this whole time. Talk to people. Hey gang, I'll tell you what, you take somebody who doesn't know this or understand this, and you talk to them, and by the time you're done, they know this, understand this. Guess who else knows and understands this? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so talk about it. I even say, you know what, if you can't get a live audience to talk to, put coffee cups on the table and talk to them. Talk about this stuff. Make that brain want to know this stuff. See this stuff not as a challenge. And gang, when we get into the brain stuff deeper, as we're moving with that, the motivational interviewing stuff, things like that, don't look at that as, oh no, this is a challenge, how am I going to get this and everything. Look at this with, hey, I'm excited about this. Hey, brain, pay attention to this. Hey, brain, we want to know about this. Hey, brain, practice knowing stuff. And again, how do you practice knowing stuff? By talking about it, by thinking about it, by using this as you do encounter life situations in your own life or on TV. Wow, look at that character. I wonder how would we, you see what I'm saying with that? Things like that. Practice knowing this stuff. And the more you do it, how does it go? The more you do it, the better you get, the easier it is. The easier it is, the more you do it. And that's not just with a habit. That's not just with the way you think in general. It's how you know stuff too. The more you work with this stuff, the better you're going to know this stuff. At some point, a lot of this stuff, you guys, I guarantee you, and again, single thing we talked about last semester, well, like I said, I'm going to say it again, is how many times have I referred to last semester already this semester? And things like that. You're going to need to know this stuff. And a lot of this stuff you need to have working, ready to have it now knowledge. It's not like that client is sitting there with that blade to their wrist or their neck. Could you wait just 1 minute? I got to go to the office and go look something up. I got to try and remember something. No, you got to have this information. You see what I'm saying with this? So, if you didn't do as well as you want, and a few people, you have seen me, and we got to talk. We got to figure out what's going on here. You see what I'm saying with that? I'm going to go over this test right now. Your being here today, as per, make sure you're marked on this. Your being here today and going over this test is going to get you 10 more points onto whatever your score is. Because we're talking about this today. But,
Yeah, I need that too.
and that's nice. And for some of you, that means you're over 100. That's great. For some of you, you may still be below what's satisfactory. That 10 points. And that's not the way you want to get those. The way you want to get these points in the long run is to know this stuff to begin with. Does that make sense? And so, yeah, for being here today, and we're going to go over this and make sure you've got this. Then we've got to move on and move to that. Don't forget, guess what I'll be referring to next semester? All the things we talked about this semester and all the things we talked about last semester. You see what I'm saying? All this stuff is additive. You're constantly working with this. And so I want to make sure, and gang, you need to, don't hesitate. Don't be ashamed. It's not, this is, if you already knew everything you needed to know, you wouldn't need to be here, would you? And so there's no shame in not knowing something or not getting something. Of course, you have the responsibility then to do what? What it takes to get it and know it. And one of those things is ask questions. Make sure. We're going to go over this. I decided, there are a few things, I've got some notes I wrote down as I was looking at the test. A few things in general, but we're going to go over this entire test because it became kind of obvious. We need to go over this entire test. But we can't spend the next 3 weeks going over this test. We got to move on. So let's begin this. And again, we did have 4 basic sections. We had, and as you look at your test, and remember another thing, you guys, you got to think to yourself. This was a take-home. It's not like you had an hour and a half at this table under that pressure. This was a take-home. Where were your resources? Where were your notes? Those kinds of things like that. What was it that was missing? What is it that you need to start to do different in order to have those resources, those notes available to you so that you can do what you need to do with this? You know, where was that psychology book that you could have referred to? Or how about, working? I told you guys, work with each other. I said take it, take it individual by yourself to start with, but then I said work with each other. And, well, it's not that everybody can just drop everything and meet someplace. But, communicate one way or another. How do you take advantage of whatever your resources are in a way that you get this information? And you get this so that you can represent not just knowledge enough to pass a test, but the kind of knowledge that's going to be there for you when you need it when you're working with that client. Do you see what I'm saying with this? And so, let's begin with this. The first thing, were there specific sections? Hey, I did okay with the learning theory. Hey, I did okay with the mental illness. But boy, I sure got some weaknesses with that research. Boy, I'll tell you what, I sure had some weaknesses with that process to the product. I did good with the process to the product. Boy, I got some weaknesses with the learning theory. I still don't get that damn operant conditioning thing or whatever. Then identify that, get yourself busy with that, beginning with right now as we go over this stuff, make sure you understand what we're talking about here. Does that make sense? So let's go. Once again. And there were several problems with independent-dependent variable. Remember, the independent variable, and guys, you need to know this. As a matter of fact, there's new articles, new stuff out there right now. people who are doing research. I hear this every day from my interns. I hear this understanding research. That wasn't just something I threw in there as a curveball to throw you off. You need to understand research. You have a responsibility to understand research. Research, understanding research. Understanding research as a consumer of that research. You're going to go to these conferences. You're going to read these articles, these books, and then you think you know something based on science. You inflict this on people's lives. You better know what the hell you're doing with that stuff. And whether or not it is good science, bad science. Being able to, hey, don't forget that basic ethical duty you have as a counselor. You may not be running around with white rats and things like that, but every day as a counselor, you have an ethical duty to seek to measure is what you're doing working. And doing that scientifically sound and well. Those kinds of things like that. Hey, the independent variable. Which one do you manipulate? The dependent variable. Which one is measured? And remember, the dependent variable is not who you measure, it's what you measure. All right? And so, for example, in this one right here, subjects participated in driving simulation study to investigate night driving reactions as a function of alcohol consumption. 30 subjects were divided into 3 groups. Group 1 drank cocktails containing no alcohol. Group 2 received 3 ounces of alcohol. Group 3 received 6 ounces. After the subjects drank the cocktails, each operated a driving simulator. The data consisted of the number of driving errors made. For example, driving too fast, improper passing, accidents by each subject. And this, what is? What is the independent variable? Somebody just say it. Say it out loud. Make your brain hear it.
The amount of alcohol consumed.
The amount of alcohol, what we manipulated, different kinds, types, amounts, and things like that. And the dependent variable is what?
The number of driving errors.
The number of errors, not the drivers, and you know, not the number of accidents. It's that overall score, that thing you're looking at. Does that make sense? That kind of accidents were an example of one of those errors. It wasn't only that though. So the number of errors, or if there had been, you know, we gave them a driving score, it would be the driving score. A lot of people had a problem with this one. According to the null hypotheses, what would we predict in terms of the relationship between the different levels of alcohol and the driving? What would we predict?
The only differences were based on chance.
It's just chance. I mean, in other words, null says what? That you got nothing here. Nice try, nice idea, but, and don't forget, with that running example, what was that, 67 to 73? Null would say what? The only reason why those numbers are different right now is because of chance. Somehow or another. An unaccounted for extraneous variable. Maybe some kind of subject reactivity. Maybe you did the very best you could, but you still ended up with biased group differences and things like that. The only reason why those numbers are different is because of chance. There is no relationship between what you think there. Does everybody get that? Does everybody understand that? If you missed that, do you understand that now and what that null means? And if you missed that, write yourself a note. I'm going to make sure I understand what null is about. You get this stuff, you guys. A lot of people. Sometimes, guys, don't make this a bigger deal than it needs to be. People start going on about things, you know, like, well, we're going to measure carefully the amount of alcohol and stuff like that. How do you control the subject variables? The simple answer is what?
Use
Randomization. That's it. That's all you need to. That's it. Randomization. That's how you control for subject variables. Well, everybody, most people did well with, which is the control group? Well, good. That no alcohol group. Most people did well with that. It is reported the findings indicate that 6 ounces of, what does it mean? That the researcher rejected the null hypotheses at 0.05? Simply, once again, that while the researcher is reporting a relationship, they will be wrong 5% of the time. That's what that means. Don't forget, at 0.05, rejecting null means that what? At 0.05, that means null really is correct 5% of the time. So if I reject null, that means I'll be wrong having done that 5% of the time. Keep it simple with some of this stuff, you guys. The 4 basic steps. Remember, that's what we started that discussion with. What was that? Once again, the scientific discovery, what was that? Number 1, we experience, we observe, we wonder about it. We elaborated that natural human motivation to want to know. Hey, every time we saw that X, there went that Y, we dug that hole, we found that Y, wasn't that good? Yes. Hey, what was number 2? We think, the human thinking brain. We think about it, and from that, seeking. What is science? Once again, seek understanding, prediction, and then control. Number 2, we think about it, we form a hypothesis. Number 3, test the hypotheses. What is that? Look at it the scientific way. Number 4, what was that? Verification, replication. Understanding that stuff, you guys. One thing we didn't have specific in here, so very, very, very important to this stuff. Who's good with internal, external validity, and all the implications that we talked about with that. That's so very important. Don't forget, hey, somebody real quick, tell me. What do I mean by external validity? And why is that such a dangerous situation if we're not careful?
Isn't external validity has to do with the sample and making sure that what happens, like a phone call, or is that right?
No, external validity is the extent to which we can generalize. We find out stuff, 67 to 73. That's what we found out from our anxiety sample.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, and let's say we did reject null, which means that we get to talk about, we got something here. That's nice about the sample, but I wanted to know about all the people out here. External validity, the extent to which I can generalize the results from the sample to the
general
here.
population. Okay.
In other words, I look at you, and I think I know about you. And if I don't have a representative sample, the next thing you know, I'm running out there, and I'm inflicting science. Maybe it's not working. Maybe. And then when it's not working, I'm mad at you because you just don't want to get better. Maybe. The problem is, somebody blew it right here. You've got to have that representative sample. It's got to be able to generalize to the population. Another big, big, big mistake we make, and this is even more dangerous, where we have a representative sample, we generalize, and this is okay, but then we take outside it, even the population, and try and inflict that on people who weren't even in the population to start with. This is all very important, you guys. Understanding this. This is how we know what we think we know. This is how we do clinical psychology. The scientific study of the change relationship and changing behavior. The 4 kinds of control.
Randomization.
Number 1 was what?
Randomization.
Randomization for what?
Subject variables.
Subject variables. What was number 2?
Holding constant.
Number 2 is
Holding constant.
holding constant all those other circumstantial environmental variables. Don't forget, you guys, with this, subject variables. Maybe these people all got good news last night, these people all got bad news last night, these people all had a good childhood, these people all had a bad childhood, these people all got a good attitude. Who knows? What do? We wash them out with randomization. But then we still have another set of issues. These people got their therapy at 8 o'clock in the morning. These people at 10 o'clock in the morning. These people in a brand new rural mental health setting. These people in a rundown inner city hospital. We got to keep all those things the same also. Control number 2 is what then? Is holding constant all those other factors and variables and things like that. What was control number 3?
Experimenters.
Watching out for experimental reactivity. I mean, don't forget, just being here in that sample, we're doing some, we're manipulating stuff, we're conjuring stuff, we are asking questions, we're doing this, we're doing that. I don't want that. The reason why I see what I saw is because I was looking at it. I want what I see because that's the real situation. We've got to control for those, again, those scientific, those observation procedures. Example, yeah, we withhold information. Sometimes we outright lie to people. We set up situations. We talked about single blind, double blind, all those different kinds of things. So that control number 3, controlling for that just scientific, that reactivity. And then what was control number 4?
Control versus the
The
experimental.
control versus the experimental group,
Pairs.
where the control group serves. Hey gang, telling you that the cognitive people got 67, well that's nice, that's information, okay, that's cool. Cognitive people scored, but that 67 really starts to mean something when I say as compared to the people who got the other approach, who are still scoring 73. Now 67 really starts to mean something, doesn't it? So that control group is that baseline comparison. Hey, the only difference principle. And some people would put, well, if everything's the same. Well, I want you to be able to say that the only difference principle, and you can't look that one up, that's one of your lunatic professors' neologisms, conceptual neologisms. But we talked about this, and what is that? Once again, if I can assume that everything is the same, a well-defined population, in the first place, everybody's the same. Careful, randomization. As I get my sample, everybody's still the same. Careful, randomization. As I assign people to different conditions, everything is still the same. I control all those environmental variables. Everything's the same. Same. And the only thing different here is the independent variable. In this case, type of therapy. Then, if they become different, 67 is different from 73. Can I assume that the difference is because of the only thing that was different? The independent variable. In this case, type of therapy. And if I do that well, then I get to claim cause-effect. Again, reject the null hypotheses. Again, if it's at 0.05, still admitting I could be wrong here 5% of the time. 0.01, 1% of the time, or whatever. But that pulls all that together. Does that make sense? Gang, I'm walking through these. No, we're not spending a lot of time on any of these because I'm not hearing questions. And I know that not everybody got this. And so make sure, if you've got questions, now is the time to ask these questions. You've got, and by the way, gang, you're going to be tested on this stuff, this material, at least 4 more times. This stuff, not only the new stuff. The end of this semester, your test is going to be all the physio and all the assessment stuff on top of all this stuff. You see what I'm saying? Why am I doing that? Because I'm just a mean son of a bitch. No, because you need to know this. You need to have this. We never are done with anything. You never throw anything in the closet. Well, I'm done with that crap finally. Now it's time. No, everything always rolls together. So make sure you know this. What does the null hypothesis have to do? Remember, what is that null hypothesis? And I was looking for your words, your ability to represent, your humility and skepticism, understanding that while null says there is no relationship there, as a good scientist, we assume null is correct until we can find evidence to the contrary. That's what we're doing here. Remember, this is evidence to the contrary, but not quite enough yet. Remember, when we got to this point, remember what we said. Okay, on the surface, it looks like cognitive reduced more than humanistic. On the surface still. And then we had another question to ask. What was that then next question? Is this difference here, is this the result of chance or real differences? Remember that discussion? Chance. The chance that something happened. You missed an extraneous variable. Even though you did your best, you still ended up with front row sitters or whatever else it may have been. Whatever it may have been with that kind of stuff like that. It was just chance. Versus real difference. No, they're real. There is a difference here. Therapy really does have an impact on this. And as a matter of fact, what we're looking at, cognitive therapy really does seem to be reducing that anxiety more than the other approach. Chance factors versus real differences. And then, how do we answer that question? That's where that null hypothesis came in. What does null say here? group 1, group 2, and what does null say? They're the same. And you sit there, no, what the hell are you talking about? 73 is not the same as 67. Null would say what? I know that, but the only reason why they're different is because of chance. You assume that's the correct. Well, then we kind of, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I assume that. No, I don't, not really, but as a scientist, I have to assume that is what it is until I can provide the evidence that maybe it's not. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to offer an alternative I think, you know, well, no, I know, okay. It's kind of like what? What is the null hypothesis? In court, guilt or innocent until proven, quote unquote, guilty. You see what I'm saying with that? Charles Manson. We had everything but the blood on his hands. We knew damn well he was innocent until, and again, we don't like proven in science, do we? They say that way in legalese, but until proven guilty. Well, how do we do our best to, well, I think, this is what I really think. I think that, in this case, cognitive therapy really is less than humanistic therapy. And gang, now we've posed our hypotheses, and then how did we test that? And no, you didn't have to learn this. You're going to in Psych 250, but we did a formula that gave us a number. And what did that number tell us? That number from this formula, which is using these descriptive statistics, our observation, the numbers we got from looking at these people. We plugged them into this formula, that gives me a number. Somebody tell me, what does that number tell me?
The percentage at which you can reject the null hypothesis.
No.
Oh. You can try.
Not that. It tells me, what does that number tell me? Anybody? See, this is, guys, you gotta get this. Say it.
Well,
The probability that null is correct. That's what that number tells me. The probability that null is correct. Null is saying you got nothing here. This number tells me the probability null is correct. What did we say then? If we can show with this number that the probability null is correct is low enough, then we get to what?
Reject the null.
The null hypotheses in favor of the alternative hypotheses. In this case, it does look like cognitive did. You see what I'm saying? How low does that need to be? Well, that's where our 0.05 or 0.01 or whatever comes in. If I declare 0.05, what I mean then? And how did we say it? Now you guys are the directors of the anxiety clinics throughout the Midwest, and I'm here, and I'm telling you about this research. Oh, by the way, don't forget to buy my book on the way out today, How to Do Cognitive Therapy. And look what I'm showing you here, and I rejected null at 0.05. You need, when they tell you that, and that's, again, in that seminar, and what the fuck does that mean? Well, what does it mean? It means that while I'm telling you that I have evidence here, I can even speak now of cause-effect evidence that cognitive therapy reduces anxiety more than humanistic therapy. I'm going to also be admitting to you what?
That you may be wrong 5%
I could be
of the
wrong
time.
5% of the time. That's what that means, you guys. Now, we covered this stuff. And no, we didn't cover it like we do in Psych 250, but we covered this well enough for you to be able to respond to this test. And if you're not responding to this test that way, you need to look at why. You need to know this stuff. And then there was another, if you remember, I spoke to also another very, very good selfish reason to want to know this well. And I mentioned several times, attractiveness. You want to be attractive to potential employers. One thing that makes you very attractive to potential employers is knowing this stuff, appreciating its importance, ability to actually walk around this stuff, know what you're talking about. Wow. I just got a memo the other day from the president that we better start doing research. Well, this person, no, I don't know what the market, they do. I think we need to hire that person. Gang, I'm telling you, knowing this, makes you very attractive. What we're saying, public speaking ability, teamwork ability, those kinds of, knowing research makes you very attractive. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so don't forget that. Number 4, what is? And again, gang, some people, you know what, and remember this for not only future DAC, but any class you're in. In short answer, this is a thing that professors talk about all the time. Somebody who has a good answer and then they don't know when to shut up and they end up spoiling a good answer. And that happened here a few times. What's an extraneous variable? What was that? What did we say? Anything out there.
What I was saying about that. Anything out there that could manipulate.
Right. An extraneous variable. Anything out there that could affect the dependent variable that is not the independent variable. I don't want to know, do you like your counselor? I don't want to know, did you get good news last night? I don't want to know, and it's not that I'm unsympathetic here, but I don't want to know if you had a bad childhood. All I want to know right now is, how is this type of therapy affecting the score on that anxiety test? You see what I'm saying? I don't want to know the rest of that stuff. And if that stuff gets in there and interferes with my ability to look at what I want to look at, it's messing up my results. Extraneous variable. Anything that could affect these numbers here that is not the independent variable, or in this case, type of therapy. What do? We control extraneous variables, as we just spoke
I
of.
find myself mixing definitions, like mixing up words and definitions. Does that make sense? I have to really work on that because...
And let's not call it work on, let's call it practice.
Yeah.
And you know what, one of the best ways, take somebody who doesn't know this. Mm-hmm. Do me a favor, mm-hmm. and just let me talk to you about this for a minute. Mm-hmm. And by the time you're done, they know this, guess who else knows it? I'm not kidding you guys, the study doesn't have to be that mysteriously confounding, or, you know what, just practice knowing this stuff. Talk about it. Talk about it. That kind of a thing like that. Like I said, drive friends and lovers nuts with this stuff. Just talk about it. If you can't get a live audience, put coffee cups on the table, tell them about it. But talk about this stuff. Practice knowing this stuff. Yes, hand. I saw a hand.
This is where I'm kind of outside. I wish I wasn't asking you the question, but my definition that I think I did ask a question about, and this was what was given to me, is anything that is out there that don't manipulate the variables, theories that is not my dependent variable.
Well, but that's not really. You want to be able to say anything out there that can affect the independent variable that is not the independent variable. Just keep it that simple. In other words, anything out there. Again, time of day, you got good news last night, you got a bellyache. I don't want to know about any of that stuff. Those are all extraneous variables. They certainly could affect your level, but I don't want to know about that stuff. All I want to know is, what is therapy doing to you? So just keep it simple. And again, anything out there that could affect the dependent variable, that's not the independent variable. That's all. That keep it good. And that's going to help you remember that and know that and clearly delineate what is, what's not. And of course, those are the things then, when you design your experiment, those are the things that you're going to seek to control in your observation. Okay? Everybody cool? Move on. I want to know the effects of attitude improvement training program on, well, drug and alcohol clients. I lead one group of subjects from a women's treatment program where clients receive new training program. My colleague leads another group of methadone patients, male and female, from the local mental health center's outpatient-based methadone programs where clients receive a typical motivational counseling 12-step education group. Following a 2-week period where each group of subjects receive 5 groups per week, all subjects were measured on an attitude improvement scale. Results indicated that the new training group scored in a manner that indicates a more positive attitude toward recovery than the methadone patients group. I then assert that the new training program will improve long-term outcome for AODA clients What's the independent variable?
Two different types of therapies.
The type of therapy. Yes, the type of therapy.
It varies from each group.
They're different. They're different with each group. Yeah, one is one type, one's another. Independent variable. What's the dependent variable? The attitude scores. Yes, what you're measuring. Were there any problems with this design?
A lot.
Well, there were a lot, but you know what? We could summarize that in a couple of statements. Number one, no randomization. Number two, differential treatment other than the independent variable. There were all kinds, but they could be summarized by those two statements. There was no randomization. Remember, gang, it broke the only difference principle. Remember, the only thing we wanted different here would have been the type of therapy. Well, what else was different? Everything was different. You see what I'm saying with that? And so that's what I want you to be able to see and sift through. Now, the last part of this question, and
Hold on, real fast, you said we could sum it up in two things, no randomization and...
differential treatment other than the independent variable. Yes. In other words, there are all kinds of things. The only thing I want different, don't forget, the only difference principle is the independent variable. There was all kinds of different there that had nothing to do with the independent variable. That's the point of that.
So my answer is saying the one group of the
Here,
subjects are
other
just
than-
women, and the
other
other
than-
group are a mixed gender group.
And
Those are two different.
that's different. That's different.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Same thing as saying independent variable.
Well, yeah. In other words, yeah. There was difference that we didn't want. I don't want
We
that.
want everybody to be the same.
We want everything the same except for the independent variable.
Right.
Yes. 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 Everybody cool? Questions? Now, gang, don't just write down the answer. If you don't know this, ask. This is the time to ask. Most people didn't get this. Is this a trick question? Not one bit. It'd say, learn how to read a research article. What was the problem with it? Indeed, nothing in that study addressed long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm out here hollering about long-term recovery. You see what I'm saying? And that's just learn how to be a critical looker at or thinker. There was nothing about that experiment that spoke to long-term recovery. That was another problem. Who thinks this was a hard test?
It was pretty tough.
It was super challenging, yes.
Good. That's what I want it to be. Why? Because I'm a big asshole. No, because I care about every one of you, and you know who I care about even more?
Clients.
Your client. Number 6 and 7, most people, again, gang, here, learn how to speak what we call low noise, high frequency. Say it and get done with it. What the mean? Why do we want it? Because it's our best predictor, our best estimate. Not everybody here scored 67. The mean was 67, which means my best guess for this group would be 67. Why do we like the standard deviation? Because it tells us how much we can trust that mean score. And we talked about that to a point. I didn't let this turn into statistics class, but that is important. When you're reading, when you're consuming research information, you want to know those mean scores. Of course, that's what tells you what's going on. But you do want to have that standard deviation tells you. If I've got big standard deviations, take a look at this for a minute. What if this is what the actual data look like? What's wrong? All kinds of dispersion, all kinds of variance in those measurements. Yeah, there's still a difference here. 67 is different from 73, but look at this. Where the hell do these people belong? No, I want something that looks more like this. We're always going to have some. Come on. This is psychology. We can't even really see what we're looking at. But I want that low. The lower the standard deviation, the more I can trust these mean scores are meaningful. That's what that means. Everybody cool? If I want to do, and this one, lot of people missed it. Just make sure. Remember, the best answer here is what? If I want to show cause effect, I need to do what? What did we just talk about?
Inferential statistics.
Inferential statistics. That's just the answer. If I claim statistical significance, I have been able to, and several people,
Very well.
it's reject the null hypotheses, the whole story. And then, and I think most people did okay with this. If you didn't, do you have a question? The greatest advantage of naturalistic? Well, we talked about that. Is that I don't have to worry about, no. That's one of the biggest problems we have with naturalistic observation was subject reactivity. Don't forget, just looking at people doing stuff changes what they're doing. That was one of the big problems we got with naturalistic observation. Guess what you're going to be doing a whole bunch of in counseling? Naturalistic observation. When we started to talk about process of the product, we talked about those 5 models. The biological, the psychoanalytic, the behavioral, the cognitive, the humanistic. We did a thumbnail of each one of those. And of course we did elaborate much more with various issues, Piaget and Kohlberg and some of those kinds of things like that. But once again, basically what was I looking for here? Well, the biological approach. And nice, keep it simple. First of all, identify it. Biological approach. Hey, that's about what? The stuff of human psychology is just another body function, another biological function. Hey, psychological problems are just another disease. Psychoanalytic approach. You could have put R.E. Sigmund Freud here, Siggy Baby, if you'd have wanted. You could, the psychoanalytic approach, that we are the result of complex combinations of structures, energies, constructs. For Freud, the id, the ego, the superego. That, childhood, and early developmental processes are very important. That, problems are the result of unresolved childhood conflict. A simple thumbnail. Behavioral, the learning theory. Classical operant conditioning. Our personality is what? The result of our learning. Problems are what? Learned. Faulty learning. The cognitive approach. The focus is on what? Thinking. Thought processes. Thinking. We talked about that once again. They would suggest that problems are the result of what? Faulty thinking. Pessimism. Negative thinking. The humanistic approach. Well, that's, you could have even there, you could have referred to this if you wanted. Boy, did that become an important issue in our discussion last semester. When I do that, everybody's mind, you know what I'm talking about here, right? Maslow, hierarchy of needs. What was the most important thing we talked about with this? Don't forget, if these needs here aren't met, to hell with these needs. If the client doesn't believe these needs are met, to hell with these needs. Speaking of thinking, the humanistic approach, Rogers, Maslow, self-actualization. Problems are the result of what? Blocking our movement towards self-action. It's just a simple that you understand these 5 different, these are the 5 major approaches that influence the way we counsel our clients. These, one way or another, these are the 5 approaches that so powerfully influence how we think we understand and thus try and help our clients. A lot of people got with this, I think the quantitative and the behavioral, we talked about that. Stage theories, I think most people did okay with, are qualitative. In other words, for example, we talked about Piaget, for example, who would think that we are qualitatively different thinkers as we move from pre-operations to concrete operations. And boy, I'll tell you what, did we get into Piaget? Do you guys remember how damn important Piaget was in our discussion? And what did I say? I'll bet my entire career I've never sat a client down and spent a session talking about what Piaget said, but I use those ideas every day I'm with a client. Remember, we talked about, for example, in concrete operations, and bad things are happening in this little kid's life. You remember, what was it, the mommy-daddy windmill, the baby windmill story? That's where that kid is at that point. And then we took that to the next, hey, good things happen to good little boys and girls, bad things happen to bad little boys and girls. Something bad is happening to this little kid right now in that early concrete operations. Can that serve as that reference point for this kid? A self-fulfilling prophecy reference point for this kid. Bad things are happening to me, so therefore I'm a bad person. Does that serve it? We talked about with that something else. Guys, we talked about so much that wasn't on this test. This test was just a reminder of some biggies, some of the stuff. Don't you? Hey, what was another thing we said? Here he is, now. You're 16 years old, you're 23 years old, you're 31 years old, and I'm sitting there, how does this feel good to be this mad at yourself? What a awful self-esteem you have, and that kind of a thing like that. And what did we say? Hey, the more you do it, the better you get, here it is. I suck. Don't forget that brain also locks that in. Okay, you suck. All right, and besides that, remember, what was another very important thing we said? Why would a person so stubbornly hold on to something like that? What did we say? Any explanation is better than no explanation. Guys, you've got to remember every single thing we talked about last semester if you're going to be a good counselor. That any explanation is better. Do you realize how important that's going to be one day when you're talking to that 27-year-old who's sitting there? You see what I'm saying with that? Why? Well, because they're a dumbass, they don't want to get better, they're full of shit, and they don't care about anybody. No, that's not why. It's because of everything we talk about, how we don't have to fall prey to that way of thinking about people. Once again, how we understand so that we don't have to be so. What was that very first thing I said? Hi, Dan, or I'm Dan, welcome to DAC. Oh, by the way, you can't. By understanding this stuff, we don't have to be so damn mad at our clients. Does that make sense, you guys? That's what this is all about. Number 15, object permanence. This is just a matter of anybody that messed that, you write yourself a note, I got to get back to that book and study Piaget. Object permanence represents what? The end of sensory motor. If you didn't have that right, write a note. Go study Piaget again. Just the basic outlay of his basic cognitive development thing. Introspection would be a marker of, once again, if you didn't get that right, what is that? Marker of formal operations. If you didn't get it right, write yourself a note. Got to go study Piaget some more. I got to get better at that one. Hey, we talked about, you want to talk about stepping out of the pages of the book and into real life, Kohlberg, moral development. And then we talked about, and again, those damn teenagers and why they're doing some of the things they're doing. And remember, that's where we stepped out of that. We went into high school. We talked about the peer group. We talked about all that stuff. And again, why is little Johnny punching Susie in the arm? And why this and why that? And why are these kids so damn mean? And how all of that is going to manifest itself and translate into two very, very important things you're going to have to know about your client. Cognitive dissonance resolution and self-efficacy. Remember that whole story, you guys? Remember all that stuff. Two of the things you need to know a whole bunch about. Hey, cognitive dissonance resolution, that's right. A central part of the beginning, the whole hedonic calculus, isn't it? Where did that come from? How did this person learn? How? We looked at that. The process to the product. That's a way to understand. Who is this person today? Why is this person making the choices they're making? Which are so obviously so costly, self-destructive. Are they really that damn fool, stupid, bad, evil, rotten? No. That's where we got to knock that off, get over that stuff. Does that make sense? By understanding process to the product, we understand who this person is, how they got to be who they, and that means that maybe, you know what? That's going to help us identify, well, maybe some ones and twos. Everybody knows what a 1 and a 2 is, right? Everybody knows what a 1 and a 2 is, right? All that kind of stuff. All that kind of stuff, you guys, understanding that. Well, this one, hey, we said it in class, and it just, again, back to Siggy Baby, what was that?
Child is the parent of the adult.
The child is the parent of the adult. If you want to know this adult sitting before you today, know their childhood.
That's so true.
And we talked about, hey, that brought us to that issue about now. Just worry about now. That's nice. That's where you need to be, now. The best way to know the now is to know where they came from. Watson is the Rogers as, well, what would that be? Watson. Well, you're going to have to know several things. Watson, behavioral, determinism. You're going to need to know what? Rogers, humanistic, free will. If you get that one wrong, study that stuff. Again, match the following. Well, again, just reviewing those basic model kinds of things. Psychoanalysis, what would that be? The darker side of. Yeah, we talked about it. Sigmund Freud is often seen as what? Negative determinism. Basically what? We're a bunch of horny little id monsters running around with our dirty little thoughts. Behaviorism, what? Tabula rasa, blank slate. That we are not much beyond 4F animal until experience scripts for us who we become. Our personality is our behavior. We learned our behavior, case closed. Humanistic, of course, they rejected all that stuff and they said, what? No, we are uniquely different humans. We're better than the other animals. How could you use the kind of a law of effect to explain why apparently sane people do apparently insane things in pursuit of drugs? Most people, I was very generous. If it felt to me as if you basically got it, okay. And what it basically got it, the whole idea of, if it feels good, do it. If it don't feel good, don't do it no more. The whole idea of. Now, you may have to sneak something into this if you really want to make the point. Because how can all this bad stuff be feeling good? It's not feeling good. But what is feeling good?
The reward that you get from
the negative reinforcement. Remember, what did we say? The most powerful way there is in the world to feel good is to make something that feels bad go away. That is a powerful, powerful reinforcer. We will pay a price for. We will do things for. We will take risk for. Negative reinforcement we would never even consider for positive reinforcement. People do not ruin their lives for the fun of it. We're not that stupid. If we were that stupid, we would not be here today talking about it. Our species would have been gone a long time ago. Drugs are not something that suddenly happened at Woodstock. They've been around a real long time. You see what I'm saying with this? No. There are reasons why we do what we do. And so when we talk about that law of effect in terms of understanding addiction, we got to remember the feel-good part of it. Yeah, I know, it's fun. We got a buzz on. Hey, let's party. That's nice. But at some point you say, that's not worth it. But they're going and going and going and going. I mean, you think about it. What is? Right now, bottom line, right now, if somebody's waking up and the only thing they are thinking about, care about, is get their drug as soon as possible so they can, what? Not be dope sick. What is that? Negative reinforcement. Making that go away. Those kinds of things like that. And so that's what I was looking for. And your understanding of that. Because that's going to be central to your understanding of the whole dynamic of the hedonic calculus and why apparently sane people end up doing what is obviously on the surface apparently insane stuff. That's one of the basic nuts and bolts of the whole understanding addiction. Yes.
And to clarify then, the floaty things are those negative reinforcers?
No.
No. So yes, I'm glad I asked.
Well, the floating things are the means to the negative reinforcers.
Okay.
My drug is not the negative reinforcer. My
No,
drug
it's-
gets me away from the stuff, which is my negative
It's your
reinforcer.
use of the drug, it's not the drug itself.
Yeah, it's how the drug is affecting me.
Okay.
Well, I'm feeling all bad, mad, sad. I take the drug, and now I don't give a shit. The drug wasn't the negative reinforcer. The fact that I don't give a shit now because I took the drug is the negative reinforcer.
Because I'm expanding this into non-drug behaviors as well.
And that would be anything like that. It's still the same thing,
Right.
no matter what.
Okay, thank you.
And so, no, the floating things are the things that help us get there. Where? To escape avoidance. That's why we're so damn afraid of losing them. Because don't forget, the number one floaty thing was what? The drug. What was the number two floaty things?
The addiction survival persona.
The ways that I have become who I have become to maintain my ability to use the drugs. Yes. And that person is terrified of letting that go too? These are the kinds of questions I want you guys to ask with this stuff. Others. The client has been in. Most people did pretty good with this. I'm glad to see that. Has been recovery for about several months. He hosts a birthday party for his son. We talked about this in class. As the time for refreshments arrives, he panics as he starts to crave beer while he's opening cans of soda for the kids at the... Hey, what was the condition? Most people got that right. Opening those cans. You know, damn, if only one counselor, one day, would have taken effort, guess what? This is going to happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or an ass. It means, well, what it basically means is, guess what? Your brain's working pretty good. That's what it basically means. What was the response?
Craving beer.
Craving the beer. Most people did pretty good on that one. Well, Jimmy, poor guy, got drunk and suffered a bad hangover last night while drinking brandy. Tonight he is back at the bar drinking. Well, he's not drinking brandy. This still seems kind of crazy. What the hell is he thinking? From class discussion, what story related to classical conditioning could you use to help explain this?
Well, it's that learned taste aversion, right?
Learn taste aversion. The little red berries. Gang, this is one of the kinds of questions that not only will the client be asking, but so is mom and dad and the wife and the husband and the other family members. What the fuck's wrong with him? You should have saw him at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's so fucking sick. What the hell? How could he even think about going out again tonight? And that, helping that client. Hey, what was that? The issues of what? Discrimination and generalization. Gang, what the hell? I'm so afraid of little cars, I'd still rather walk in a snowstorm than get in the right backseat of a little car. Then what the hell am I doing on a motorcycle? How do we, same explanation. What is that? My brain, I didn't get killed on 2 wheels, I got killed on 4 wheels. With that, what's the explanation here? That is very, very stimulus specific. Remember the red berry story. I go out, I ate those little shiny red berries, I got sicker than hell. My brain learned, don't ever eat those little red berries again. But what if my brain, instead of say, don't eat those red berries again, what if that brain would have said, hey, you ate, you got sick, never eat again? What am I'm dead. Might as well died from the red berries. No, that's very stimulus specific. No, it's not that there's something that drastically, insanely wrong with this person you care about right now. I know they went out to drink tonight. They didn't drink brandy. I know. Why didn't they? Because that brain, just like with the red berries, that brain learned never drink brandy again. It didn't learn never drink anything again. Just like that brain, never eat berries again. It didn't say never eat anything ever again. It said never eat those little red berries again. Unfortunately, that brain learned don't drink brandy no more. It didn't say don't drink alcohol no more. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Is it the same principle like when you get real sick and just the thought of like just the thought of drinking Captain Morgan makes me kind of nauseous.
And what would that also be? That is what? A clear example of
Classical conditioning.
classical conditioning. There you go. Yes. A beautiful example of classical conditioning. Questions? So, gang, don't let me just tell you what this is and fill in blanks here. You've got to know this. If you're going to be the person one day that client needs, you've got to know this stuff. If nothing else, don't forget, you are going to be tested on this again several times. Because I'm just the biggest asshole you ever met in your life. In terms of consequences, well, most people did pretty good with this one again. Take more risk for what? Negative than positive reinforcement. Yeah, yes, exactly. A lot of people miss this one. Remember, the answer, which schedule seems to strengthen behavior the most? Variable ratio reinforcement.
Can you explain that more? Because I don't understand that. I'm not clear.
Remember,
Like,
ratio reinforcement was based on number of required behaviors.
okay.
For example, and we use this in various ways. For example, if we put that rat on a fixed ratio, 5, that would mean every 5 times they get their food pellet. What if we put that rat on a variable ratio? It's kind of every 5 times. Now that, gang, the idea with this is that you never know when the next one is the next one. Remember when we talked about, like with classical conditioning, and I had that last $10 in my pocket, they're not going to get that. And just as I was about ready to walk away, the person at the next slot machine, ring-a-ding-a-ding, I'm slobbering like Pavlov's dog. There goes that last $10. And then we took that on to operant conditioning. They're not going to get that last $10, I'm telling you right now. And then I spend my 40 and I finally am out of money. I'm about to walk away. And you've been watching me for the last 40 minutes. And I know damn well you're going to walk up to that machine as soon as I walk away, pull it one damn time, and win $1 million. Because I never know when the next one is. I never know when the next one is.
So that's variable.
That's variable ratio reinforcement.
Okay.
And little Johnny and the candy bar story. Same. What did mom do? She moved that kid from extinction to variable ratio. Little Johnny learned. Not quite sure how much I got to do, how loud I got to scream, but I do it enough, I'm going to win. I get my way.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's related, like the intrinsic
Why
motivation, where like you will ruin
Brain is not
intrinsic
clicking
motivation
that.
to do something by providing a
Well, that's a whole different issue, and you're right about that.
Okay.
If you provide external payoff for intrinsically motivated stuff, that was my snow shoveling story, if you remember. Then yeah, but that's another issue. You're right about that. But this, and then gang, we took that variable ratio one step further. Basically, alcohol use pays off on variable ratio. First of all, given you never really know what the hell's in street drugs in the first place. Second of all, add to that the variability of tolerance. Third, add to the fact that whatever chemical compound a drug is, and what it does all by itself physiologically, we still got to throw into the mix setting, mood, health, this, that, and everything else. And the next thing you know, every drug use is a little bit different. Variable ratio.
Okay.
The power. We will keep pulling that lever. And guess what? There goes my $10. The power of variable ratio reinforcement. That's what that is. Yes, sir.
I had no idea that you had went to that. That you went from one thing to the next, because in one question you was talking about in terms of consequences, people would make more sacrifices, may take more risks for negative reinforcement than they would for
Right,
positive.
exactly.
Then when you went to what schedule of reinforcement
Variable
seems
ratio.
to strengthen the behavior the most, our negative reinforcement, because I'm
Negative
I'm going through
reinforcement
these
is not a
1, 2s,
schedule of
3s, and
reinforcement.
4s in my
Listen. Negative reinforcement is not the correct answer because that's not a schedule of reinforcement. That's a type of reinforcement.
Type of, okay. It's your
And the
word.
question asks what schedule of reinforcement.
Right.
So therefore, now,
My mind
you want to
was
know
just-
what most powerful is? Variable ratio, negative reinforcement. But, and this is where, and so I'm glad you asked this question, because if you missed it, you're not the only one. And this was an issue of reading the question, wasn't it?
Right.
It didn't ask for what kind of reinforcement, it asked for what schedule of reinforcement. And that's a good practice, because guess what? A lot of people who fail that IODAPCA test, they walk out of there with a big red spot right here. Oh shit, I read the question wrong. So that's a good example of that. I'm glad you asked that question. Yes.
And I can see it, I probably failed this test, but I'm gonna still ask this question, because it says, and I'm going back to this learning theory.
The who?
This is the learning theory question that you had on 21. This is the information I received. Maybe my hearing brain wasn't working with my writing brain. You told me I wasn't supposed to be writing and taking notes at the same time. But it says that, how could you use the concept of the law of effect to explain why apparently sane people do apparently insane things in pursuit of the drugs they are chemically dependent on, such as myself. Those behaviors followed by satisfied will be repeated. I enjoyed the high, I kept on doing it regardless of the consequences. But those behaviors followed by a negative situation will not be repeated. I don't agree, because even though I went to prison, I'm still gonna go back and use my.
Because, and that's exactly what that question's asking.
I'm
Because no
still-
matter what it cost you, you
Right.
still was getting something, making it worth it.
Right.
And what was that worth it?
But
part of
it didn't put down, on here, it just says those behaviors followed by a negative situation will not be repeated. I repeated doing what I was
Then
doing,
we talked
even though
about
it was a
though,
negative
listen
situation.
now stop your question and listen to the answer. Remember, we talked about none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. What you did and whatever negative consequence, that's the whole hedonic calculus. Whatever negative consequences you were having were being outweighed by the powerful positive consequences of that negative reinforcement. That's the point of that. That, yeah, you had negative consequences, but they weren't enough to outweigh what you were getting for it still, which was the escape avoidance.
So this law of effect isn't as strong as the negative reinforcement.
No, the law of effect encompasses negative reinforcement. The law of effect explains why reinforcement works. Reinforcement is a consequence. It takes away bad stuff.
Right.
Whatever cost you were paying for doing that. And that's the whole point of the hedonic calculus. Don't forget, we are not ruining our lives for the big feel-good of it.
Right.
Very quickly, these consequences for you going to prison, whatever you mentioned.
Right.
Well, why did that make it stop? Why didn't you stop then? According to the law of effect. Because, believe it or not, whatever you were paying for that, you were still getting more.
Right.
And what were you getting? Negative reinforcement.
Right.
And so, the law of effect was working just the way we would predict in your case. Because you were getting something more than it was costing you. And that's what we have said now several times this morning. We will pay a very high price for. We will endure a loss for. We will take risk for. Negative reinforcement. And as long as that negative reinforcement is worth more to that person than the loss is costing them, they will keep doing the behavior, which is why you kept doing that. So what I'm saying to you right now is the answer to your question about that issue. You really were getting more still than you were paying for it. Even going to prison wasn't enough for you yet. you were still getting more for it than what you paid. What were you getting for it? Taking away the bad stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's exactly the kinds of questions I want you guys to ask. Make sure you get this. Your question. That's exactly the kinds of questions I want you to ask. Get this. Now do you have a different understanding of that?
Yeah, I got it.
Then that's it. That's exactly what I want every person to do. That. Make sure you I don't want you to know a definition. I want you to know what does it mean, how you're going to use it. So, good question. Everybody cool? Back to the client. Most people, I was pretty happy with this one. A lot of people, I was pretty happy with this one. What was that? The client has been using specific cocaine dose at his regular crack house, goes to a different crack house, uses the same dose, and he's dead. How would classical conditioning explain that? Most people, and again, if it felt to me, your answer captured the basic point here. And what's the basic point? Classical conditioning was preparing that person for all the stimuli in the old house. They weren't ready in the new house. And so, what was a safe dose in the old house? Because classical conditioning was raising their defense against that. They go to the new house, not the same stimuli. The classical conditioning is not raising their defense. What was yesterday's safe dose is today's lethal dose. Most people got that pretty good. Any questions about that? We're going to get back into that when we get into tolerance here.
So you're saying, what was your response to that? Because I see you wrote it down this year, C notes, class discussion, and I understand about those things that if you can't get it from one place, you get it from the next place. And you may not be excited because you went a certain way, you got it from this, I got it from you, but then now I'm getting it from her because you don't have nothing. So I understand that concept, how the hyperactivity and maybe the tolerance of it's probably the same stuff.
In other words, here's how it's working.
What is the actual?
Let me answer.
Okay.
Every day I go to this dope house, it's the same steps to the front door. It's the same knob. It's the same person sitting there. It's the same this. It's the same that every day. Every one of those things is serving to my brain that cocaine is on its way. Classical conditioning. Okay. At some point, my brain becomes so familiar with that pretty soon it starts to chew up neurotransmitters before I even get to the drug.
Yeah, butterfly.
Okay, which means now I need to use more of that drug. And then we have this tolerance. Pretty soon, my brain is so familiar with all these, cocaine is on its way, that by the time I get to the cocaine, I'm already up here. I need this much cocaine. Because my brain has been chewing up neurotransmitters, preparing for the fact that cocaine's coming. So now I need this much cocaine in this old dope house. Tomorrow I show up, they got busted last night, closed down. I go to the new dope house. Different stairs, different doorknob, different person sitting there, different this, different that. My brain's not recognizing that stuff. It's not getting me up here. I'm still down here, but I don't know that. Yesterday, over there, I needed this much cocaine. My brain's not preparing me for that today because it's all new to that brain. I use this much cocaine today, I'm overdosing. Because my brain wasn't physiologically helping to prepare that body for that dose of cocaine.
But I think it's also important to still say, though, that even if you go to the original dope house, you don't know what are in street drugs. So there's a good probability of an overdose every time you use.
Well, anytime, anyway,
Yeah.
because you're right, you don't know. And that's one of the problems with the opiate right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the opiate itself is so bad. It's that they are polluting what they're calling opiates with so much shit. You don't know what you're taking.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why so many people are overdosing on opiates.
Mm-hmm.
They're really overdosing on garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So the answer to this is essentially a matter of the classical conditioning discrimination aspect, the aspect of discrimination.
Right. And the idea that over here, my brain recognizing, hey, cocaine's coming. It's
Right.
preparing.
Whereas it's
But
not.
when I go to that new house, none of that stuff is happening, which means when I use this much cocaine here, it worked yesterday, but today when I go over here, My brain's not recognizing those signals. I use this much cocaine over here. My body hasn't prepared for that much cocaine. I'm dying over and over.
And that's because it's basically a different kind of a bell. It's not the same bell, in effect.
Yes, different bells or no bells.
Right.
And we're going to look at this again when we get into tolerance. But we talked about that last with classical conditioning.
So does that use just like a different part of your brain then, as like your hearing and your thinking brain? Because like knowing I'm going to use cocaine isn't now like, because I obviously I'm going to buy cocaine, I'm getting my cocaine. I know I'm going to use cocaine, but my brain's not ready for it. Is that because there's a different part of my brain
it's just
straight now?
It's much more complex than just what specific part of the brain kind of a thing. But the thing is this: I need cocaine. That's one step, and then every step I take toward my getting that cocaine, my brain's recognizing every one of those steps, and then I get to the dope house, and every one of those are a signal. It's a bell. Remember, bells salivate. Signal that doorknob. Signal. Cocaine's coming. Protect yourself. Get ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
That person sitting in that cocaine. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Get ready. By the time I get to the cocaine in this familiar place, I need this much cocaine because I've already. The problem is when I go over here, none of those things are happening.
Okay, so it's kind of a series of steps.
Yes, and now over here, it's not the same person, it's not the same this, it's not the same that. My brain isn't raising my readiness. So that when I use this is how much I needed yesterday over there. I use this much over here, my brain wasn't even close to ready for that much, and I'm overdosing. And that's how that works. Now we're going to look at that physiologically also this semester, but the learning theory, that's what that is. Other questions? There are people I'm hearing nothing from who I know really need to be asking questions. I can't make you. That's up to you guys.
What version we on? We on 28 yet?
We're on 27.
Still working.
This one was pretty straightforward. Most people should have gotten this, and most people did okay. It was basically what? Well, we already went over it. Real things that happened in the past that were bad. Real things that happened in the past, by the time we get done thinking about it, it felt so bad. Real things happening now that are bad. And number 4, real things that are happening now that by the time we get done thinking about it, they feel so bad. Most people did good with that. A lot of people miss this one.
I am constantly getting little Johnny mixed up. Constant. I would
Don't
like
forget,
to.
the point of this
pummel
question
little
I
is,
work with little Johnny.
you don't know what the consequence is until you actually see what it does to the behavior. What if it turns out little Johnny likes getting spanked?
Right.
Some kids don't give a shit.
I didn't think I was like that. I think I was in my personal.
Well, the point is with that, the point with that question is, and we make that, parents make that mistake. Friends make that mistake, spouses make that mistake, partners make that mistake, and counselors make that mistake. How can't this get your attention? What's wrong with you? Remember we talked about don't impose your consequential values and I don't like this, but you like this. Since you like this, I don't like this. That means there's something wrong with you? No, that doesn't mean that. We make this mistake. You don't know what a consequence is until you see what it's actually doing to the behavior. That question didn't say anything about what it did to the behavior, which means the answer to that question is you don't know yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cognitive learning could keep it real simple. Learning in the apparent absence of consequences. That's
Yeah, I missed that one too.
We need 27.
I forgot.
Did I miss 27?
He asked about 28, so we skipped.
I'm sorry. Thank you for catching me.
No, we went over 27.
Yeah, he just read it off. He just read it straight off.
That's all right.
Yeah, number 27, once again, don't forget, real things that happened in the past that were bad. Number 2, real things that happened in the past, by the time you got done thinking about it, it feels so bad. Number 3, in the hedonic calculus right here, real things that are happening now that are bad. And then number 4, real things happening now, that by the time you get done thinking about them, they feel so bad. The tiger makers in us. Has anybody got to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
I know. Let's take a quick
I always
5.
have to go to the bathroom.
I got over a pint of water in.
All right, let's take a quick 5, because I know I just noticed the clock. We've been here for a while.
I got it one second.
Well, no, I always have to go to the bathroom.
I noticed that I didn't get